Hey, welcome to yet another Suda 51 LP. Kind of going back in time now, although I guess I somewhat hesitate to call this a Suda 51 LP considering his real involvement in this game, but we're playing Shadows of the Damned. Yeah, going all the way back to 2011 and the so-called Suda 51 trip, as EA's marketers put it.
Back when dinosaurs roamed the earth and we had to watch TV by candlelight.
Yeah, back when we were stuck with Unreal Engine 3 games on our 360s.
Oh,
because that's what we're playing. This is, this is mostly just to kind of give an explanation, especially for people who maybe don't really give much of a shit about reading like what I post like in the opening post of the thread. But this is, as I said, us doing a playthrough of Shadows of the Damned, a game that I have not actually touched at all since it first came out, mostly just because of specific feelings I had about it, especially in regards to where I felt like Suda's involvement in his games had clearly changed at a point after the first No More Heroes.
yeah, same, funnily enough. I got it back when it first came out, played it up until one particular section, got frustrated, stopped, left it for a while, and then picked it back up again and finished it. Never played it since, up until recently.
Yep, it was... And the reason for why I decided to pick it up again was... It was actually twofold. One was because of Travis Strikes Again. As I'm sure you all remember, we got to go through like the theoretical sequel, Damn Dark Knight.
The memories.
Yep, talked a whole lot, like in a sort of compressed form about Shadows of the Damned's entire development saga and just kind of how like deflating the whole thing kind of felt.
Yeah, painful clusterfuck, I think we called it at one point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We called it many things. But the other reason why I decided to do this is because very recently, in fact, it was like right before the turn of the decade, I finally sat down and read through a manga penned by Suda himself called Kurayami Dance. This was also something we had mentioned during the Shadows of the Damned themed episode on TSA, but it was a manga written that was based largely on a lot of what Suda's original concept for Shadows of the Damned was going to be.
Yeah, and reading it, it's you can kind of see a few links between it, but it would have been a very, very different game.
Yeah, it would have been very different, and it would have been a whole lot more true to like what a lot of like old school Suda fans really want out of him, like out of a game that is truly like directed, written, designed, all that by him.
Yeah.
And so that leads us to what this is about. Like each video, obviously we're going to be playing through Shadows of the Damned, talking about it, the things that it kind of does well, the other times it kind of does not. But following that, we're going to also turn this into a sort of like let's read, I guess. Well, maybe not let's read, more like a book club kind of talking about, kind of the chapters of this manga as it goes along. Because I do think, even if it's not as a game, if you are possibly someone who's not that big a fan of actually playing Suda's games because of his sort of design flaws, as it were, then Kurayami Dance might be more your thing because it's just story.
Also, arguably because of the hype around these games, like, oh, they're so weird, they're so Tarantino-esque, and I know a lot of people that like Tarantino's movies but can't stand the fans or, all the baggage that goes with them.
Yeah, and that even, like, kind of ignores the fact that there's some other clear influences that you can see that kind of go beyond just Suda being Japan's video game equivalent of Tarantino.
Oh, definitely. This one feels more like a mixtape, for want of a better term, of horror movies primarily, but also a few other bits and pieces which you'll pick up now and then.
Yeah, and when you look at Kurayami Dance, you realize that he's channeling way more Kafka than he probably has in any of his other works. Because, funny enough, Kurayami Dance and by extension, the very original concept for Shadows of the Damned was supposed to be influenced by Kafka.
Yep. Which is weird because reading it, I was like, hang on a minute, this reminds me a bit of Clamp at the beginning. I was like, the fuck?
Yeah, you'll see the bits and pieces, but for now, let's take it over to the game proper. We'll see what what we have in store in this weird underworld Kafka, yet not quite Kafka road movie.
Can't wait.
It'll be a trip. Look, executive director.
And not much else.
Yeah. And creative producer.
He did a couple of games once.
Oh yeah, I know that guy's music.
Yeah, didn't he do the music for Dexter? Who's this asshole?
I don't know. But this guy's the real director. Though the marketing wouldn't let you think it was.
Well, why tell the truth when the lie's more interesting?
That's really the thing that is so frustrating, but I think I kind of get now when it comes to, like developer titles, is that when you add stuff like executive and other sort of, like, prefaces in front of something like producer or director, that's just your way of, like, playing nice with them even though they barely were allowed to do shit.
Yeah, it's like, okay, here's an ego boost and a bigger paycheck. Now, you just go away while we do a thing.
Yeah. That title, that name card was missing a fucking in the middle of those.
Yeah. It's the fact that every time he says Garcia fucking Hotspur,
yeah,
fucking is always capitalized, so it's like, that is literally part of his name.
Just
How cool is that?
Just like Billy fucking Cohen.
God, there's a... Jesus.
Yeah, that's an LP subform flashback for you.
That's a deep cut.
Yeah.
That pet gun of yours, that old demon kind. And wherever you're not looking is where the greatest threat shall be.
Fucking knew Finland was always trouble.
We shall seize the treasures of your life.
No one's looking at Finland.
And leave only emptiness.
I feel there was definitely a missed opportunity with this game to, like, not include an alternate costume where it is just Garcia shirtless. If only because I just want to keep looking and, like, analyzing what the fuck all his tattoos are.
Plus the fact that, like, they're ridiculously detailed and you see them, twice in the entire game? And this is one of them.
Yeah, in fact, like, this whole video is just pretty much gonna encompass all of what we're going to see of his tats.
Yeah.
Fuck you!
I think this pretty much is a metaphor for the entire game. Amazingly designed. You don't get to see jack shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just because it's Unreal 3. Weird lighting engine.
Weird thing going back to this game is that, like, that little loading icon, after playing Travis Strikes Again and getting used to the purple jacket, I, honest to God, mistook that for Travis. Like, what's he doing here? Anyway, here we are in gameplay. I'm just kind of doing what I can to pad out for time by letting the tutorial prompts, like, just play out. Because this section goes by really fast if you do not care about taking things slow.
Shit.
Oh, for a guy like Garcia, this place is incredibly tasteful.
Yeah. Including
Although
the
that
giant...
picture kind of looks like Mila Jovovich there.
I mean, if your girlfriend looked like Mila Jovovich, would you complain?
I mean, Mila Jovovich's husband Oh dear.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to walk in on this.
I was gonna say, he made like an entire series of movies just to show off his sexy wife, but
yeah.
Having her hung by the neck is also kind of a thing, I guess.
And have her back torn open to let out the demons.
Yikes.
Yeah, this whole section is just all about, like, just rapid fire, telling you all the basic controls and combat stuff you need to know before really, like, diving into the rest of the game.
Yeah, I'll say one thing for the game. It doesn't belabor the tutorial much.
Yeah. In fact, like, it kind of goes back to what I said. If you were going through this really fast, you would more than likely finish off all these enemies before the tutorial prompts even finish cycling through.
Yeah, it's like, have you played a third-person shooter in the last decade? Okay, you know what to do.
Yeah. Another thing that was, like, an actually kind of pleasant reminder when I went back to this game was actually due to playing later Grasshopper games. That slow-mo zoom-in on the headshot is straight up copied over into Killer is Dead. You get the skill for your muscle back arm where you go into the aiming mode with it, and if you get like a headshot, it does that exact same zoom in and desaturation.
Oh yeah.
But the effect in that is like way more enhanced than it is here.
Yeah. Well, there it's a skill that you have to buy, isn't it?
Yeah. And obviously by that point, you know, they had Grasshopper had used Unreal 3 for quite a number of their games, so they had gotten a little bit better with, you know, the visual presentation at least. Because this looks fine, but it's still early for them.
Yeah.
Look, she may be dead, but you can't touch her.
Yeah, but I saw a t-shirt once that said dead girls can't say no.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I feel bad for saying that.
Yeah, there's... Oh, this game's gonna be real weird when it comes to just... I mean,
yeah,
this next cutscene, I think, says it all about the one thing that does not hold up well about this game. And you just, just need to listen to this motherfucker here, this Fleming.
Baby, I would blow your head off nicely.
Let her go. But can't you see the little peach is coming on to me?
Come on,
Dude.
Pendejo. Oh, demon hunter. Your bullets have no bite, no penetration.
Dick jokes, right?
Should have a little counter in the corner for every dick joke in this game. Don't do this as a drinking game, you will be dead by the midpoint of the game.
That was just the appetizer, Hotspur.
Fuck it, now I'm tempted to actually add a counter in the corner of these videos. Son of a bitch, you just put that awful seed in my head.
It's gonna be like a fucking CinemaSins video by the end of it.
Oh, God.
Only over one little blonde bombshell. Tell you what, you can have the girl back, good as new.
Fleming's design, admittedly, is not so bad, even if his dialogue here was making me roll my eyes real bad.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a character from Dorohedoro, with the sort of body armor almost.
The body armor, and and obviously like the head shape with like the multiple eyes is really neat.
And just how bulky he is in general.
Absolutely.
A place for Paula has now been set at my table, mortal. You cannot have her back now. But come to my castle in the underworld, and you could still join in our revels.
Such a tempting offer. I do love a party. Maybe we could play Pong. Or do shots.
Okay, that was kind of cool.
Yeah. It wasn't dick related. That was definitely a plus.
Yeah.
Instead, just went for just making a little Pong shot reference.
Yeah. Also, I wonder if him catching the bullet's like meant to be a Killer 7 reference.
Or it just might be just generic, cool Japanese anime thing.
Coming back to life and dying some more.
I think with Suda51 it could be either.
Yeah.
Yes, help her. Because in the meantime, I'll be helping myself.
That's a big and. And there we go. this was the last time we're ever going to do shit in the human world. Somehow managed to get his jacket on completely during the fall. That's gotta be real talented.
You know, G, just because the highway to the underworld is stretched out before us doesn't mean we have to...
Is there a problem, Johnson?
Well,
Oh, Johnson, you really are the best character this game gave us.
wouldn't like it there.
Says the former demon. What's wrong?
At least his voice was there from the beginning and not brought on in the last minute due to focus test shit.
Yeah.
That place. Look,
Plus, it's also kind of funny how they treat demon like it's an occupation. Just former demon. It's like,
metal jokes and
what?
posing for pirate flags. It's only worse for mortals.
Then all the more reason to go. They have Paula. So the way I see it, you are either with me or you're not.
No!
Nick Cage, eat your heart out.
That is what happens when a facehugger makes love to a motorcycle.
And that's a mental image that's gonna stick.
Just beyond the sound barrier.
Now you're starting to wonder, like, which exhaust pipe the proboscis goes in.
Not according to the internet.
Fucking 4chan, man, I swear to God.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Shadows of the Damned. Thanks for watching. Psych, as if this would be the fucking end of things. Well,
Yeah, give or take a few dick jokes, you've pretty much seen everything there is about the game.
I mean, it says a lot that before going back to this, that entire prologue was the thing that stuck in my memory the most about this. But yeah, that's the first chapter, but it's not the end of the video, because as we've said, you know, we're also covering the manga that was penned by Suda based on what he wanted his original concept for Shadows of the Damned to be, and that is Kurayami Dance.
It's kind of all over the place.
It is, and it's something that as you go along, that while you can look at this story and very easily see what could have been Shadows of the Damned, it's surprisingly lacking the one thing that Shadows of the Damned actually managed to retain, but I'll save what that is for the next episode, because in terms of gameplay, that next section will hammer in pretty hard what it's all about. But we're going to start things off here with like the first chapter, aptly titled 300.
There's a joke in there somewhere, but I'm not going to do it.
Nah, it's not about that, but I would say it ties in nicely with our friend Garcia's comments about the sound barrier and having to break past it to the underworld. Because we need to first be introduced to our main character. Our main character, Kaido Wataru. Though, as he later soon finds, he'll be given the nickname Kamikaze Wataru. But this young man right here is an undertaker in the small Japanese town of Hado. And his attire is just a couple items away from being a full-on tuxedo mask cosplay.
Yeah, first time I read this, honestly, I was reminded more than anything of something like Holic by Clamp, because he looks so much like Watanuki in that it's not even funny.
Yeah, he's a very handsome boy.
Yeah, your typical black-clad pretty boy.
Yeah,
who never smiles.
Mm-hmm. I mean, why wouldn't he, considering he's an undertaker? And this is the thing where I feel this really hammers in how much more, right off the bat, Kaido is a Suda51 protagonist than Garcia is. Because, you know, it's common knowledge out there, like, if you've done even, like, the most, like, cursory kind of, like, research into Suda's background, but before working in the games industry, he went back and forth between a lot of jobs, with one of his most significant ones being an undertaker.
Yeah, only found that out recently, funnily enough. I read a couple of bits where he said it was actually one of the more interesting jobs that he ever did. I said, if he ever left the game industry, it's probably the one that he would go back to.
Yeah, and it's kind of not hard to see why, considering the way he described it is that it gave him like a reshaped and kind of different perspective on death than like most people probably ever would in their lives, considering like he works, the job involves having to deal with, performing funerals and, understanding like, there are other people related to the people that die, and, you get different perspectives and kind of insights into what that might be like for them.
Mm.
So yeah, Kaido, he works, he works for Royal Funeral Services. He's, he does his job. He dresses nice. He plays catch with his boss, like after performing services, which I imagine that's a good kind of de-stressor after, doing something so solemn as that.
Yeah, after doing something so serious as a funeral service, I imagine you'd want to do something just completely silly and frivolous.
Yeah, and through the rest of this first chapter, you do get a sense of kind of like what looks like Kaido's kind of general mundane routine after work is all said and done. He stops by home. He sees that his mother's left him a meal to reheat in the microwave. Never actually see her though. So,
yeah, it kind of looks like he's living in a one-bedroom as well, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, but it's like, small town. Even with like the job itself, it's probably not the most paying one. This all totally goes back to kind of like what's being, when I talk about this feeling like a real classic pseudo protagonist, because there are parts of it where he is drawing so much from certain experiences and interests of his that it does feel like it feels partly self-insert, but not all the way that it would become like obnoxiously kind of, defeating the whole purpose of the story and the character.
Yeah.
Like, you think of Travis, he in a way feels partly like an insert for Suda in the sense that he represents like his kind of love for all the video games and other nerdy interests in his life.
Yeah, it's sort of almost an idealized way, an idealized self in a way, but also like critical as well. In that Travis is obviously a complete dork, terrible with women, almost a parody of the classic otaku hero as well.
Yeah.
So he's sort of like half idealized self, half incredibly self-critical.
Absolutely. So yeah, the chapter goes on. Kaido eats his meal. He stops by his best friend Kenjin, who works at a convenience store in town, and this is where they have a little bit of like a chill conversation that doubles as a slight bit of world building and foreshadowing for what's about to happen.
Yep, and when Kaido puts the jacket on as well, it's sort of like, yeah, that's like him turning into Garcia Hotspur in a way.
Yeah.
The jacket is very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
A bit less ornate, but looking at him, it's like, oh, right, okay. I see where this is going.
Yeah. He at least still has a shirt underneath.
Well, technically, but it's quite a low-cut one, so you can barely see it.
Yeah, it's probably like a wife beater or something, but yeah.
It looks like.
Yeah. The two of them, Kaido and Kenjin, they're buddies. They talk about how, there's been like advertisements for elections happening recently. There are like trucks passing through that are part of like some possible foreign company that bought a disposal facility in the mountains. A nice
Ishizaka logo one there.
I was just about to lead to that. A nice ISCK reference right there. Still getting work, even outside of America. Which then prompts, the two of them having a pretty understandable, I guess at the time, I don't know why you would want to go and do it these days, but, just wanted to go to America and have a road trip, just between the two of them.
Yep, that's so Suda at heart.
Yeah.
I especially the way they do it, it's like, I want to go to America, just like all the movies I've seen. Like Dennis Hopper and Easy Rider, and it's like, dude.
Yeah.
Stop being so self-stereotypical.
The funny thing is, though, that it's Kenshin that is, like, the most self-stereotypical about it, because he straight up mentions Arnie as this, but Kaido ends up being, like, the more sophisticated one who goes, like, actually, I'd rather be like Dennis Hopper. And it just flies over his head.
Yeah, unlike you plebeians, I've actually seen some cinema, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Who's Dennis Hopper? It's like, dude, have you not even seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2? Come on.
Yeah.
You bring shame upon this family.
Rest in peace, you wonderful man.
You goddamn lunatic.
Yep. So after that, pleasant little chat, Kaido heads off again on his bike, heads to the highway interchange, meets up with Morishima, a very clear reference. In fact, I'm actually going to go even further and say that it is supposed to be the Tokyo Morishima from the Silver Case. Because the side profile that they give him in the urinal is... his hair is very on point with it, but he's wearing sunglasses, so you can't quite tell if it's his eyes, especially his silver eye, considering what he... Or even if he still has it, because again, he has this whole fucking arc across the entire series. That's neither here nor there. But
yeah, I think it's like close enough to go wink wink, you know?
Yeah, and the both of them, this is where they discuss the idea about, like, you know, how fast they can go on their bike, and Kaido in particular asking the questions of going beyond 300. This is where the chapter title comes in. It's not referring to a bunch of Spartans or whatever the fuck you were thinking. This is 300 as in kilometers per hour. Because we're in Japan, we use that reference.
Yeah, it took me a little bit when I first read it. I was like, what, is he planning on breaking the sound barrier?
Well, yeah, that's quite possibly what it could be, but he wants to see something beyond that, but is consistently warned by Morishima that going that fast means you're gonna die. And frankly, if you're on a motorcycle and not like an enclosed canopy of like a race car, like I would not have a hard time believing that you would seriously injure yourself, if not outright die from the sheer speed.
Yeah, hospitals call motorcyclists organ donors for a reason.
Yeah, like, and going at 300 is what results in seeing, quote, the world beyond reason.
Yeah, because you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain at that speed.
Yeah, and following this, you get a whole lot of panels of, like, incremental number increases as Kaido keeps going faster and faster. Visuals here at this point get real fucking weird. In fact, as I was reading this, the menu music that plays during like the motorcycle sequence in Shadow of the Dam was actually playing in my head, because this was this was actually the moment where I really start to feel like, oh yeah, this is where the ideas between this and Shadows of the Dam, the one we got, actually intertwined.
Yeah, and also there's like in a lot of Suda's games, is the idea of overcoming your limits and pushing past the impossible, which is, you know, this entire sequence.
Yeah, he even gets real excited about it by the time he reaches 250. And by the time he hits 300, he's blasted with the all-encompassing red and flung off his bike with an expression that feels quite euphoric.
Yeah, blissful, I think, is the only real word for it.
Yeah, and it even backs up what Morishima warned him about, because he straight up admits that he completely lost track of what happened after he hit that speed. Didn't even realize that he got flung off until things were too late, and he got fucked up.
Pretty badly.
Yeah, which then cuts to lying somewhat disfigured on a hospital bed. He lost most of his toes in his left foot. His face is all scraped up. You can barely see his lips. And a strange fucking figure is looming over his bed.
Yeah, I saw that and I was just like, Jesus Christ, if this is a fucking JoJo reference, I swear to God.
Yeah. Cut to 3 years later, somehow still alive, and awoken by a self-proclaimed sexy nurse.
There's, I Animaniacs reference in there. Can't quite place it, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm
It's
sure
in there.
we were all thinking it. But yeah, Kaido wakes up. It's been 3 years that he's been in a coma. They give a good amount of attention to the fact that the color of his right eye has changed, and if you like cross-reference it with like the color like book cover of the manga, you notice it's a familiar color for anyone who's been like even familiar with the silver case.
Yeah, bit of an odd one, that.
Yeah, like at first glance you would think like I feel like for anyone that would read this without any context to Suda's other work, they would just immediately think that this was some typical heterochromia bullshit to make him seem more unique for the crazy feat that he just did.
Yeah, or like a David Bowie reference even.
Yeah, but if there's any difference in eye color in a Suda-related work, and it's the color silver, then you know that it is of some high importance.
Yeah, pretty much. In fact, thinking about it, I can't think of any work that he's done involving like weird eye colors that hasn't been silver.
Yeah, in fact, we already got people trying to analyze what few shots of Travis we got in No More Heroes 3 to see if he even has a silver eye between his glasses or something.
Yeah, him and the alien dudes. People have just been like going nuts about it.
Yeah, I mean, we're now in a post-Sudaverse world. Anything's possible.
Yeah, it's one of those fun things where you try and explain this to anyone not familiar with the work and they will just look at you like you were insane. And you're like, no, it's actually really important. Really.
Yeah.
No, you're a crazy pants.
And then our first chapter comes to its conclusion as the first thing that Kaido sees outside his window in 3 years is
Kurayami Castle.
Yep, a very, very long
pillar?
Yeah, I'll admit, I was about to say shaft, and I realized I would have been, like, making myself guilty of the same shit I was rolling my eyes at in Shadows of the Dam, but yes, along a very tall pillar that I feel would, like, give more than enough, like, references or, like, implications of being, like, a Tower of Babel or something. Just a tall tower reaching into the heavens, almost in defiance.
Yeah, kind of reminded me, like this short sequence kind of reminded me a bit of Fooly Cooly with the Medical Mechanica factory in the background of the first couple of chapters in the first episode. But also the Tower of Thorns in Let It Die.
Yeah.
So, possibly kind of, it could be a reference to either, or it could be, like he's always had this idea in his mind and he's just wanted to get that out there. So, again, possibly another recurring image in some of his stuff, his more recent stuff.
Mm-hmm. So now, with that image in mind, Kaido makes a very obscure reference that, like, if it wasn't for the translators of this manga putting it in, like, the footnotes, I wouldn't have known either that it was basically him making a joke about Japan's, like, biggest shopping mall developer and thinking, wow, they really went all out making a giant fucking pillar.
Your one-stop shop for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I mean, Idiocracy, like, put forth the idea of a state-sized Costco. Why not just have everything in a giant tower that goes into the stratosphere?
I mean, it would be a more efficient use of real estate, so...
Oh, for sure, yeah. So yeah, Kaido's woken up. The strange figure... I'll just say it just so it's easier on me, because he does get a name later on. It's Chalia, and I'm just gonna say it's Chalia right now just for, like, ease of referring to it.
Yeah.
But
I'll probably just wind up calling him Weirdo because it's easier to pronounce and remember.
Yeah. But yeah, he's just hanging around, kind of just saying, shit to kind of get under Kaido's skin. And going back again with the whole Shadows of the Dam comparison, if Garcia has Johnson as his partner, Chalia is unfortunately going to be the partner for Kaido that he probably doesn't want at the moment.
Yeah, main difference being that Johnson and Garcia are buds, essentially.
Yeah.
Whereas this is definitely a lot more antagonistic at first.
Yeah, and kind of not really able to get away from each other for long, as you'll find. So yeah, one last checkup with the doctor, taking a look at his eye, gets discharged, and the first person to greet him outside the hospital is none other than his old buddy Kenjin.
Yep. And
the way that he talks about Kaido in this context is very, very interesting, because not even realizing it, the fact that Kaido went to 300 and survived has made him into something of an urban legend now.
Yeah, kind of. It makes me wonder how other people found out about it, because I imagine he was probably in a coma or incapable of speech for a long period of time. So
yeah,
because coming off a bike at hell, even 150 would be enough to seriously fuck you up. 300, he hits anything, he's turning into soup.
Yeah, and so this is the part where, getting the full tour of the town again, Kaido realizes the extent to which things have changed, and that it's no longer the bustling town it used to be when he was, doing his job and all that. Because the Kuragane Castle is part of a place now known as the Kuragane Kingdom, in which the majority of the working class in Hado made enough money that they decided to just go into early retirement there. And now things have kind of become partly a ghost town.
Yeah, I mean, considering that they've banned, Euclidean geometry in the town now, since everything's a fucking weird curve, I can't say I blame them and doing a complete number on anyone's seasickness.
Mm-hmm. And during this discussion, they talk about how the formation of the kingdom was done by the man that was running for mayor in Hado named Kai Kuragane, the father of a man named Naito, which is a name that you are expected to remember for a long, long time, because Kaido and Kenjin know who Naito is. They don't explain who he is, except for way later when it becomes more important. But needless to say, Kai apparently was able to use his funds and foreign investments to just create a kingdom for for anyone that was just tired of living in this place to kind of move in.
Yep, shades of Bioshock there, and Atlas Shrugged, more likely.
Not so much any sort of objectivism undertones. If anything, just the way it struck to me what the kingdom was like is it almost feels like just the biggest early retirement home in the world.
Yeah, it's less screw you, we've got money. It's more, we've got money, why should we be sticking around with you paupers?
Yeah.
And there's another Ishizaka logo down in the bottom right here, which is another nice shout out.
Yep, along with all the different manufacturers and foreign companies that invested in the creation of this kingdom.
Like Tikia, Amazon, and McDonald's.
Yeah, all the usual legally distinct brands.
All actual companies which exist.
Yep. So after that fantastic lunch, Kaido heads home. His mother apparently still remembered that he was alive and that he'd be coming home, so prepared a meal for him. She must be a nice woman, even though we never see her.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that hasn't been sitting there for 3 years.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the implications of what he's done and waking up out of his coma, it now hits Kaido that he feels stuck in a world that he no longer recognizes, which has got to be it's got to be a real harrowing thing for anyone if they were to ever be in a coma, especially for some amount of time that long.
Yeah, I was actually talking about something similar to this a couple of days ago, where myself and my girlfriend haven't been paying much attention to broadcast TV or music or anything.
Oh yeah.
So watching the Brit Awards, which is a British music award show, didn't recognize a single name in the entire thing. We're just sort of That's a person who's released an album. At least it's not Ed Sheeran. Who are they?
Yeah.
And, like, neither of us have been in a coma for even 10 minutes.
Yeah,
so...
like detoxing yourself from, like, particular forms of entertainment can, like, give you that sort of feeling. But it at least does not fuck with you to the extent where you feel like your ability to live, like, do basic functions.
Yeah,
like,
and ours has more or less been self-imposed, whereas, you know...
Oh, absolutely. Like, I have not bothered to pay attention to movies ever since Mad Max Fury Road, because I was like, this is as good as it's ever gonna get.
Nope, we've peaked. It's all downhill from here.
Yeah, still maintain.
Oh, but you've missed Blade Runner 20... whatever the hell.
What?
Yeah, the Blade Runner sequel.
Oh, yeah. Moving on.
So, Giant Moon.
Yeah, Giant Moon. Kaido heads back to the hospital the next day just to get more clarifications about his condition. Learns that because of his injuries, he may be suffering some slight hallucinations.
Yeah, would have been nicer if they told him that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're perfectly fine. Just don't operate any heavy machinery. Why not? Oh, no reason.
Yeah. I mean, he even plays coy and just like denies noticing any sort of hallucinations, even though he very clearly catches on that Chalia is his hallucination. Hence the whole, what we talked about. Like, Garcia and Johnson are buddies, and because they came together, they forged through fire, and they could probably leave on mutual terms if they wanted to. But Charlie is sticking around because he's a figment of his imagination that's just gonna eat away at him for some time.
Yeah, and the way that the doctor looks at the nurse is sort of like, something's going on there.
Yeah, you're gonna see it a couple times as this story goes along, but like in true Suda fashion, Kaido's the kind of character where he says the things that he says, but there's certain underlying aspects of what he says that feels like he's kind of lying to himself.
Yeah, it's definitely a feeling of someone's not telling the truth here, and we're not entirely sure who it is.
Yeah. And last on the list of things that Kaido does to get reacquainted with his new life post 3 years is meeting up with his old boss at the royal funeral service.
Who seems overjoyed to see him, strangely enough.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, if he was, like, your number one, like, catching buddy, I mean, like, you'd miss him after a while.
He's a pitcher without a catcher. Wait, that came out wrong.
Anyway, this is the moment where things take quite a turn, in which the royal funeral service gets a request from the kingdom to perform a funeral for one of their own. And while the boss doesn't necessarily like push it onto Kaido right away, Kaido does like ask for him to do the job anyway, just because he feels like with how much the town has changed that he's not able to live quite as comfortably, and kind of wants to see the extent to which things have changed in his absence.
It's also kind of weird as well because, like, for a tower that size, it's meant to have like basically everyone and everything in it. Why would they need funeral services for an outside facility? Like, wouldn't they have something like that inside? Yeah,
but that obviously leads into things that, as it goes on, those questions you bring up do end up getting an answer, whether it's indirectly or otherwise, just because things like to happen for a reason, and because Kaido is the protagonist, he kind of has to.
Yeah, this is basically like the old D&D standby of you all meet in a bar.
Yeah, or it's like, Travis buys his beam katana off of eBay, but you know that he didn't do it just because he was a Star Wars fan.
Well, not just because he was a Star Wars fan.
Not just because. That probably factored into it.
Actually, no, this is Travis, so it's Gundam.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's gotta be Gundam. He wants to be Amuro. Actually, no, he wants to be Char.
Oh, of course. Fuck. God damn it. Now I can't look at him the same way, knowing that Travis is possibly a Xeon sympathizer.
Oh,
Fucking
he's like, he would totally be for Xeon if it weren't for the sort of vague Nazi-ish tendencies. But other than that, seek Xeon all the way, baby.
Fuck. Anyway, Kaido gets shown the coffin that he needs to transport. He doesn't get a clear answer as to who the funeral is for, because it's kind of still being kept hush-hush, and the only thing that really seems to be the case is that a member of the Kuragane family is who this coffin is for.
And it's like 12 foot big.
Yeah.
Fuck. Well, you could smuggle an entire family in there.
It's probably super padded in there. That's probably what it is. Like the resting place inside is probably a lot smaller than the exterior.
Yeah, it's probably got 17 different types of velvet in there.
Yeah, maybe just like in the off chance that maybe this death somehow leads to them accidentally being revived, and they don't want them to panic too much being stuck in a coffin.
Yeah, it comes with a nice mini fridge and copy of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oxygen dispenser, just to not suffocate.
little cell phone at the side.
Just so you can let the people know, hey, I'm not actually dead. Could you please let me out? This is getting kind of claustrophobic.
Yeah, normal shit,
Yeah. It's normal as per Suda, as we can all establish.
But in fairness, also normal as per the obnoxiously rich, because they do shit weird.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then, as the coffin's loaded up on a very nice car, which looks like it's carrying the Ark of the Covenant, I have to admit, just with all the ornate, specifically it looks like the Ark as it would look in fiction, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, and not how it's actually described, where it's just a simple wooden box with some, decorations on it.
Yeah, or if BMW designed the Pope-mobile.
Yeah, that does kind of make me think of that as well. So it's all loaded up, and the boss and Kaido get to play one last game of catch before heading off on his own road movie. We got Garcia and Johnson already barreling down past the sound barrier into the underworld, and now we've got Kaido and Chalia, who's unfortunately riding shotgun, heading off on their own little buddy road movie to perform a funeral at some far-off castle.
Yeah, one which requires passport and border pass.
Yeah.
So it's like he's not just entering a castle; he's entering an entirely foreign land, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, an actual kingdom. And if you couldn't possibly tell from all these mentions of castle that, if for some reason you weren't cluey into the fact that this may or may not be influenced by Franz Kafka's The Castle, well then this should be, hammering it into you at this point.
Yeah, at least it's not the trial, otherwise it would be 500 chapters long.
I mean, for fuck's sake, Kaido's name starts with a K. The main character's name in The Castle is K. And he goes there for a reason, but as things quickly find, and this is where the manga will lead into it a lot more, there's a lot of bullshit that's gonna get in his way just trying to go to the castle and perform his goddamn job.
Certainly one way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah. Ew. But yeah, that's the start of the journey, and that's kind of, as you can see, why I decided for this first part that we would cover the first two chapters, because there's a nice flow into it. It's a good setup for the world, for Kaido as a character. The influences that Suda is pulling from are being made very clear, and they're just gonna be even more emphasized on as it goes on, and more importantly, as this whole LP is gonna go on, you're gonna see just how wildly these two stories diverge, and just what the difference is between something that has Suda's name attached to it for marketing reasons, versus something that actually has not just his name but his work.
Yeah, it's the The street source versus the pure strain.
Yeah, we'll go with the druggy analogy. Why the hell not?
This is coming direct from the guy's brain, rather than being watered down by committee.
Yeah, you're getting equal doses of Tarantino, Lynch, and Kafka.
Just this is a thing.
Oh yeah.
Only way to put it. One way or another, this is a thing.